This is an India Today exclusive. I'm being joined by Interpol's Executive Director for Technology and Innovation, Madan Oberoi. Many thanks for joining us here on India Today, sir. The first question, the challenges that Interpol really faces when it comes to emerging technologies, if you could elaborate.
You see, the technology and the entire technological landscape is changing at a very fast pace. So new technologies are coming, and which, if you see technology, there are both threats as well as opportunities. Threats for common citizens, threats which are exploited by criminals, and also opportunities for law enforcement to use those. So when these new technologies come, how will criminals start exploiting it is always a threat. And therefore we have to be prepared for these new and emerging technologies.
Talking about preparations, you very specifically spoke about unmanned aerial vehicles, drone technology, something that has been touted to be the future. But also, if fallen on in wrong hands, it could really be absolutely destructive. On that front, what are the concerns that Interpol really has? What are the concerns that you've raised? And how should countries look at enhancing capability with the cooperation of Interpol?
If you look at one, I would counter one of your suggestions. The drones is not a new and emerging technology. Okay. So it is a threat with which we have been grappling with for quite some time. In fact, the first Interpol expert group on drones, that meeting happened in 2017, 5 years back. So, and we just concluded our fourth drone expert group meeting. So that shows the kind of work which has been happening in the past and the kind of threats which have been evolving over a time period. So it is not new. It is something which has been there for quite some time, and we have to be prepared to handle that.
So what are the technological innovations that you're really talking about when you talk about concerns and challenges?
So if you look at the broad spectrum of the new technological landscape which is emerging, so whether the biggest challenge is coming from the overall digitalization which we are seeing. Now that means things like metaverse, things like blockchain and encryption-based platforms and cryptocurrencies, NFTs, Web 3.0, all these are new things which are developing, and each has a potential for being misused by criminals. The idea in terms of our preparedness is to understand what is the likely threat scenario, what can be done to that, and how we can use these technologies for achieving the objectives of law enforcement.
How has your division cooperated with various organizations in enhancing capabilities to understand the threats?
So I would say that we have to work with all, because ultimately the objective is to build the capabilities in our 195 member countries. And to do that, we have to work with these law enforcement agencies of 195 member countries in terms of if you look at these various developments, no one agency can work alone on these. So all of us have to work together. So bringing them together is the first thing, where we are creating a kind of platform where they can exchange ideas, share best practices. So that is the first objective. Then sometimes some of the law enforcement agencies are not very proactive. So maybe that is another role which Interpol has to look into in terms of proactively looking at the new emerging technologies, understanding the new threat scenarios, and trying to work out the implications of these threat scenarios on the policing landscape, and also to understand what needs to be done. And the third most important aspect is that when new technologies emerge, the new regulatory frameworks around those emerge. We cannot be sitting back and waiting for the regulatory frameworks to emerge and then complain about them. We have to provide the perspective of law enforcement agencies at the stage of when these frameworks are getting developed. And to be able to provide our perspective, we have to be aware of what is the technology, what are the implications. So unless I know what is metaverse, how do I contribute to the discussion about the regulatory framework about metaverse? So therefore we have to be there early and understand the issues and make suggestions on that.
So final question to you. How do you stay one step ahead in terms of technology? Because we've seen terrorists use technology against states. To beat them in their own game, you have to stay one step ahead. How is that working out for your division at the Interpol?
To be very honest, it's nobody would be one step ahead of the technology's evolvement. So ultimately technologies are evolving, the technologies will be there. We have to understand that this is an emerging technology which may have a potential for big growth, and that's why we need to be prepared for that. But it will never be that we anticipate that this kind of technology will emerge. We'll start working after technology has taken shape.
Right. On that note, many thanks for joining us over
Thank
here.
you.
That's Mr. Madan Oberoi speaking exclusively to India Today.